Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk a Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, I have family law attorney Brian Victor of the Law Offices of Brian A. Victor, who's calling in all the way from sunny San Diego in California. Now, Brian has a wealth of experience in the area of family law and will be talking to you today about the importance of creating a well-drafted child custody plan. Now, this is a topic that's dear to my heart, and I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who are really interested to hear what Brian has to share with us. So without any further ado, let's bring him on. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome, Brian, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk with us today. Now then,
absolutely,
you're so welcome. Can you briefly, Brian, in your own words, just describe the kinds of people who you serve and the situations that they find themselves in when they come to you for your help?
Sure. As a family law attorney, I work with individuals looking to get divorced, obviously, and also to create or modify child custody parenting plans. They may be people who have been divorced. They could be people who are never married but have children together, and so they need a child custody plan. In having people come to me, I have them at different stages, either of the divorce process, such as they're either getting divorced and then filing paperwork for divorce, or they may have been filed against and are responding to divorce petitions after they've been served. Also, in regards to child custody, my clients sometimes have absolutely no child custody plan in place and then need one to be created, or they may have a plan that's already been in place for a while or for even a short amount of time, but it needs to be modified for some reason.
Okay, so keeping that in mind then, Brian, and obviously anything that you share with us today is not legal advice or legal assistance. Can you briefly share some of the most common misconceptions surrounding a well-crafted or a well-drafted child custody plan?
Sure. I think the biggest misconception that people come in with is when they have a child custody plan, they feel, well, this is it, and I have to live with it, that it can't be changed and it can't be modified. However, really, in theory, a well-drafted parenting plan is best when it includes specific days and times so as not to cause, additional conflict. Especially, a lot of my clients are high conflict. They can't work well with each other, especially about their children. And when that happens, they can't co-parent with each other at all. The truth is, honestly, even the best drafted custody plan may need to get modified at some point, whether it's due to the age of the child, a change of circumstances among the parties, a change of circumstances among the child, or just because it really doesn't work anymore. For whatever reasons, it just may not work for the child or for the parent. So child custody plans are able to be modified and usually are modified several times before a child turns age 18.
So when they come to you then, Brian, where are they getting these child custody plans? Because you mentioned that they may need modifying at some stage. So where are they actually getting these custody plans from?
Well, that's a great question. What I find a lot is that people sometimes, before coming to me, have created their own child custody plan. They may have worked with the other parent, may have just gotten assistance from like a free clinic or something, and they put together these parenting plans. The biggest problem I see with that is the fact those plans are, one, not really well drafted at all, and two, are not specific enough to tell law enforcement or the court what exactly is supposed to happen. So a lot of times what I see are parents who come in and they just don't have a clue as to when the custody is supposed to be or when holidays are supposed to occur. And so they just follow something they think is a plan until problems arise. And then they don't know what to do with that.
Okay, so based on what you just shared with us then, Brian, and obviously keeping client confidentiality in mind, share an example of how you've helped someone who came to you with those challenges or in those situations, and what kind of transformational results you were able to gain for them.
Well, giving one example, I had a client who came in with a rather young child, a toddler, and the situation arose that the other parent's work schedule changed. And then as we are going, my client's work schedule changed. So the parenting plan that was already in place wasn't going to work because the hours in that plan were no longer the hours that either parent really were available to care for the child. And so there was a lot of conflict, plus it was a high conflict case already where the parents just couldn't work together on anything. And so the conflict ensued. And what I did was I worked with my client to really draft a plan that not only was going to work at this point given the change of work schedule, but also would work even if the work schedule changed again, because we left in some language in there that was going to allow them to modify it rather than have to come back to court every time someone's schedule changed, or even if the child's school schedule changed. We put that in there so that it would transform the parenting plan into a concrete plan, but also allowed for some modifications on their own. And that really worked well, and the court adopted that, and it worked really well for my client.
Today's topic is the importance of creating a well-drafted child custody plan. Now, with that in mind then, Brian, and for those divorcing couples considering their child custody options, what are one or two of the most common but unknown pitfalls that you'd like them to be aware of?
Well, I kind of mentioned a little and I'll expand on it. Sometimes child custody plans are just way too specific in the way they're drafted. Um, when they're too specific, it doesn't give the parents any latitude, or even the children any latitude for changes that may need to be made, either due to events that are occurring, or even the fact that the plan may be outdated. It's extremely important to draft as specific a parenting plan as possible when there's high conflict, but understanding that each party may need changes if the plan's too specific. And if a plan doesn't allow for changes, especially when both parties or even one party is so rigid that they won't allow for any change in that plan, then it just makes it really difficult and more difficult, honestly, for the child than even for the parents, because the child may want to participate, for example, in a sport or extracurricular activity. And if the plan was written where it doesn't allow that, then the parties are arguing a lot. And then they find themselves back in court, pretty much arguing to a judge why the plan should or should not be changed. Whereas keeping the plan as specific as possible, but allowing for some modifications, that seems to be a good place to go for a lot of people, because again, what was good for a child at age 2 may not be exactly good for a child at age 8, age 12, age 14, age 18, etc.
So, Brian, when you think back over the years of all the people that you've helped in the situation of divorce, we know it's not a pleasant situation to be in, but when you think about those people and also the people right now who are currently talking with you, is this something that you enjoy, Brian?
It is. A lot of people ask, well, how did you get involved in family law, and why would you do that? I would never do that. I would never work with divorced people. And, the fact is, and this kind of goes back to my level of experience, pretty much my entire career, I've worked with people going through situations, children. I not only have a degree in law, but I have a master's degree in psychology. And I'm also a licensed marriage family therapist here in California. So I understand the stresses and the conflicts that people deal with in these kind of situations. So expanding upon that base of knowledge, really I'm able to understand what my clients are going through and can be sympathetic to them, unlike just a regular attorney where they just want to go through the law. I go through the law with my clients, but I understand what they're dealing with when dealing with the law and the situation with their children.
So you just shared a little bit about your background with us, but if you could just go into more details about your own backstory, Brian, and especially in terms of your education and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law.
Yes, and thanks for asking that question. Prior to being in my own practice as a family law attorney, I worked for family courts. And here in California, when there's a dispute with child custody, you have to go to some kind of a mediation process to try to resolve the dispute before showing up in court. I worked at Family Court Services here in San Diego for nearly 12 years. And what I did there as my job was I met with couples, and if they could not reach agreement, I actually drafted reports, and I estimate low, but I would say I probably drafted about 4,000 reports where I recommended parenting plans to the family court judges. So that really kind of got me into this. And like I said, I did that for almost 12 years. Prior to that, I also worked for Child Protective Services dealing with children who were in abused and neglected homes. And so I have a major background in working with children and in high conflict situations and disputes. And as I stated earlier, not only do I have my law degree, but I also have a master's degree in clinical psychology with a license as a marriage family therapist. So I kind of understand all the aspects that people deal with in these kind of high stress situations that perhaps other family law attorneys don't get. And quite honestly, I am the only family law attorney in San Diego who has ever worked for Family Court Services recommending parenting plans to judges. So it definitely gives me a high level of understanding what needs to be done in family law cases.
So, Brian, I'd like you to just picture the kind of person, all those divorcing couples who walk through your door and they're looking for help and want to know how to create or want to know the benefits of creating a well-drafted child custody plan. Now, with that picture in mind, Brian, what final thoughts would you like to leave that person or that divorcing couple who's listening in to you right now?
Well, I think my best piece of advice would be obviously to contact a family law attorney in their area that has knowledge of child custody plans, because they want to make sure that the parenting plan they request, and I think this is the biggest key, that the parenting plan they request is going to focus on the best interests of their child. It shouldn't be what's best for the parents. It should be what's best for the child and what has the child been used to and what is the child going to have to get used to, because that's a whole bit different scenario. They should make sure that the parenting plan they request from the court focuses really on important aspects, and we kind of touched on these earlier, such as co-parenting, school, extracurricular activities, and they should be as specific as possible in a parenting plan, especially if there's high conflict involved in the family, but also understanding that there should be some latitude given, because at some point in the 18 years that a parenting plan can be in effect, there's going to be a time when both parents are going to need some kind of modification or change to that plan. And it's really in the best interest of the child for the parents to work together and help out so that the child does not have to suffer from the parenting plan.
You know something, Brian, this is a really interesting conversation that we're having today. And I'm sure if there's somebody out there who wants to know more about creating a well-drafted parenting custody plan, they would want to know how to get hold of you. You know, how would they be able to connect with you? So with that in mind, could you just share your contact details, please, Brian?
Absolutely. So I'll give you 3 ways. First off, they can visit my website, www.brianvictorlaw.com. That's a great way to see everything. I've got so much on there about my background, about what kind of cases I handle, and just information in general. They can also email me. they can email me at brian@brianvictorlaw.com. And finally, they can call me, especially if they're in the San Diego, California, or even Southern California, at 858-633-3529.
Well, Brian, unfortunately, we are out of time. I just have this feeling that we just scratched the surface of the information that you could be sharing. So I highly recommend you do more of this. You're a natural on these kind of shows. So yeah, please do spread the word and spread your experience, because you have a lot to share in helping people out there. So thank you for coming on the show today and sharing so generously. You certainly have demonstrated that you're a true advocate and educator for your client success. So thank you so much, Brian.
Well, you're very welcome, Stewart. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It was a great time.
Yeah, and also to the listener, no matter what you're doing out there, you may be tuning in from home or you're listening in on your personal device, whatever the case may be, I'd just like to say a big thank you for joining us on this insightful and informative conversation with one of the leading family law attorneys in San Diego today. Make sure you do check him out. I'm sure you're going to be in great hands. That's Brian Victor. Don't forget his name, and you will certainly not be disappointed. So again, I'm Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading divorce professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present, and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.